Kehoe walked into the biggest room he had ever seen. The walls stretched up so high he could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air like tiny suns. Around him sat creatures from dozens of different worlds, each one looking down at the small human delegation with cold eyes. His hands shook slightly, but Kehoe kept his face calm. He had trained for this moment his whole life. Behind him walked Hana, Earth's best military officer. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, her boots clicking on the smooth floor. They had come to ask for something very important. They wanted Earth to join the Galactic Council. The creature sitting on the biggest throne was called Veltar. His skin looked like green leather and his teeth were sharp as knives. When he spoke, a machine translated his words into human language. "So," Veltar said, his voice full of mockery, "the little humans have come to play with the grown-ups." Laughter filled the room. It came from creatures with too many arms, beings made of gas floating in glass boxes, and things that looked like giant insects. Kehoe felt his face grow hot, but he did not let his anger show. "Honored council members," Kehoe said, his voice strong and clear, "humanity has much to offer. We have made great discoveries in science and medicine. We have explored space peacefully for 200 years. We believe we can help make the galaxy a better place." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light pulsed with what seemed like amusement. "You have been in space for only 2 centuries, she said. "Some of us here have lived longer than your entire species has existed. You are babies trying to sit at the adults' table." Hana stepped forward. Kehoe could see the muscles in her jaw tighten. "We may be young," she said, "but we learn fast. Human scientists have solved problems that stumped other races for thousands of years." The insect creature clicked its mouth parts together. "Parlor tricks," it buzzed. "You steal ideas from your betters and pretend you invented them. Your weapons are crude. Your ships are slow. Your people fight wars with bullets and bombs like savages." Kehoe tried again. "We seek only the chance to prove ourselves. Give us time to show what humans can do when we work together with other species." Veltar leaned forward on his throne. His smile showed way too many teeth. "Oh, we will give you a chance, little human. The council is feeling generous today." He waved his clawed hand and pictures appeared in the air showing star maps and trade routes. "You have 2 choices," Veltar continued. "First, you can become our servants. The Dominion will watch over you like children. We will tell you what technology you can use. We will decide how many ships you can build. We will take most of your resources, and in return, we will protect you from the dangerous galaxy. In maybe 1,000 years, if you are very good, we might let you have a real voice in council decisions." The room went quiet. Kehoe could hear his own heartbeat. "And the second choice?" Veltar's laugh was like breaking glass. "Leave. Take your primitive ships and go find some empty corner of space to play in. But know this, if you choose to leave, you can never come back. You will have no protection from us, no trade with us, no help when things go wrong. Forever." Around the room, the alien representatives watched like predators watching wounded prey. Some looked amused. Others looked hungry, already thinking about which human worlds they would claim. Kehoe looked at Hana. Her hand rested on her weapon, but her eyes were calm. They both knew this had never been a real choice. The council had decided humanity's fate before they even arrived. "We need time to think," Kehoe said. "You have 1 hour," Veltar replied. "The council's time is precious." 2 guards that looked like walking rocks escorted the humans to a small room. The walls were bare metal, and the only window showed the stars outside. As soon as the door closed, Hana spoke in a whisper. "They never planned to treat us as equals," she said. "This whole thing was set up to humiliate us in front of everyone." Kehoe nodded. Through the thin walls, they could hear the aliens already talking about how to divide up human space once Earth surrendered. 1,000 years as slaves, Hana said, her voice full of disgust. "Watching them take everything we built while they laugh at us." Kehoe stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, beautiful and blue and free. Somewhere out there were human children who deserved better than a life spent bowing to creatures who saw them as less than dirt. "There is a third choice," Kehoe said quietly. Hana looked at him. "What do you mean?" "They said we can never come back, but they didn't say we couldn't come back different." When their hour was up, the guards brought them back to the great chamber. Veltar was eating something that looked like it might have been alive recently. He barely looked up when the humans approached. "Well," he said, "will you be good little servants, or will you run away and hide?" Kehoe stood straight and tall. When he spoke, His voice carried to every corner of the massive room. The United Colonies of Earth respectfully declined both offers. We choose exile. The room erupted in surprised chatter. Veltar nearly choked on his meal. You choose exile? Do you understand what that means? No protection, no trade, no help when your colonies start dying in the cold dark between the stars. We understand perfectly, Kehoe replied, and we accept those terms. Veltar shook his head like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Stupid humans, you will regret this choice when your people start starving. Kehoe smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a happy smile. Perhaps. But we will regret it as free beings, not as slaves. As the human delegation left the chamber, they could hear Veltar already giving orders about which Dominion fleets would move into human territory once Earth was gone. But Kehoe was thinking about something else. He was thinking about empty space beyond the galaxy's edge where no one had thought to look. He was thinking about what humans might become when they had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. He was thinking about promises and how humans always kept them, even when it took a very long time. 6 months had passed since the Council's cruel offer. Admiral Taymin stood at the window of the giant space station orbiting Earth, watching the last ship seal its doors. The sight should have filled him with sadness, but instead he felt something like pride. Below him, Earth spun slowly in space, blue and white and beautiful. For the first time in 300 years, no humans lived on the planet where their species was born, not because they had been forced out, but because they had chosen to leave with their dignity intact. Final numbers, Admiral, said Captain Bora, reading from her tablet. 14 billion people on 3,000 ships. Every human colony from Mars to the edge of known space has been evacuated. Taymin nodded. The decision to leave everything behind had been hard, but once made, humans had moved with incredible speed. In 6 months, they had built the largest fleet in galactic history. Not warships, but transport vessels and colony ships and mobile factories that could keep billions of people alive in the empty dark. What about our cities and bases? Taymin asked. Bora smiled grimly.
All destroyed, sir.
We left nothing useful behind. Every building has been rigged with explosives. The aliens will find empty worlds and scrap metal. Through the station's speakers came the voice of Kehoe, now commanding the lead ship of the Great Fleet. All vessels, this is Exodus 1. Prepare for jump in 60 seconds. Destination coordinates have been loaded into your navigation computers. Taymin looked at the coordinates on his screen and felt a chill. They were heading for the void, a region of space so empty and dangerous that no sane species had ever tried to live there. No planets, no resources, no hope of rescue if things went wrong. It was the perfect place to disappear. Dr. Youngsu, Earth's top scientist, joined them at the window. The planet will heal, he said softly. We took all the people and animals, but we left the forests and oceans alone. In 50 years, Earth will be more beautiful than ever. Good, Taymin said. Let them see what they lost when they drove us away. As the countdown reached 0, 3,000 human ships vanished into hyperspace at the same moment. The synchronized jump created a flash of light visible from half the galaxy. It was humanity's last act in council space, and it was beautiful. Behind them, they left a message broadcasting on every communication channel the aliens used. To the Galactic Council, humanity has left your space as you demanded. We have taken nothing that was not ours and destroyed nothing that could not be rebuilt. We leave behind clean worlds and empty skies. Perhaps when we are gone, you will remember what you have lost. We will not return until we can stand as your equals. In the council chamber on Nexus Prime, Veltar watched the message with satisfaction. Good riddance, he told the other representatives. Now we can divide their territory among civilized species. But Quindes, the ancient ethereal being, floated in her container and said nothing. In her long life, she had seen other young races choose exile over slavery. Most had died in the cold between the stars, but some had returned changed, hardened, dangerous. The human fleet traveled for weeks through hyperspace, heading for the edge of everything. When they finally stopped, they found themselves in a region of space so empty that the nearest star was just a tiny point of light. Around them was nothing but cosmic dust and the faint glow of distant galaxies. Home sweet home, muttered Bora, looking at the sensor readings that showed absolutely nothing for light years in every direction. But Kehoe was studying the empty space with different eyes. This is perfect, he said. No one will bother us here. No one will even think to look for us here. We can build whatever we want, become whatever we need to become. The first year was the hardest. Living in ships designed for travel, not permanent homes, was difficult. Food had to be carefully rationed. Water recycled endlessly. Children were born in cramped corridors instead of hospital rooms, but humans adapted as they always had. The mobile factories began breaking down asteroids and space debris, turning them into building materials. The first permanent stations were ugly but functional, just metal boxes connected by tubes. But they were humanity's first steps toward a new kind of civilization. Timon, now in charge of all military forces, worked with teams of engineers to design new ships. Without council restrictions on their technology, human scientists began experimenting with ideas that had been forbidden. They built computers that thought faster than biological brains. They created materials stronger than anything in the known galaxy. "Look at this," Dr. Youngsu said, showing Taemin a new invention. It was a small device that could turn space dust into complex molecules. "We can literally eat vacuum and turn it into whatever we need." By the 5th year, the void no longer looked empty. Human habitats dotted the darkness like artificial stars. Massive shipyards built vessels that were more like small cities. And in the deepest research labs, scientists worked on projects that would have terrified the council. Kiho, now older but still sharp, stood before a hologram showing their new domain. Thousands of stations connected by streams of light. Millions of humans who had never known planetary gravity. Born to live among the stars, how long? He asked Timon. "How long until we're ready?" Taemin studied the military reports. Human technology was advancing so fast it was hard to track. They had weapons that could crack moons, ships that could move faster than anything in council space, and most importantly, a generation of young people who had grown up free from alien rules. "Give us 50 years, Taemin said. 50 years, and we'll come home with gifts the council will never forget." Kiho smiled, the same cold smile he had worn when leaving the council chamber. "Promises made must be promises kept. We told them we would return as equals." In the growing network of human civilization, children born in the void learned about Earth from their parents' stories. They learned about dignity and freedom and the price of both. And they learned that sometimes the only way to gain respect was to become strong enough that others had no choice but to give it. The exile had begun as punishment. But it was becoming something else entirely, a forge that would reshape humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. 50 years had passed since humanity fled to the void. Commander Dayun had never seen a sunrise on a real planet. She was born on a space station, raised in artificial gravity and trained in the deep vacuum between stars. Her skin was pale as moonlight, and her bones were strong as steel from genetic improvements that would have been impossible under council. So she stood before a massive display showing what humans, now called the Constellation, their new home built from nothing in the empty dark. Thousands of habitats glowed like artificial stars, connected by streams of ships and energy beams that painted the void with light. "Status report," Dayun commanded. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded starships since she was 16 years old. Chief Engineer Wu Jin was one of the few people old enough to remember Earth. His hair was gray now, but his eyes still burned with the anger that had driven humanity into exile. "Forge Station 7 is online," he reported. "Our industrial capacity is now 200 times what we had when we left council space." Diane nodded as she studied the numbers. It was hard to believe, but humans had learned to break down matter itself and rebuild it atom by atom. They could take empty space and cosmic dust and turn it into cities, ships, weapons, anything they needed. The technology would have seemed like magic to the aliens who had driven them away. Dr. Minna approached with her own report. She was young like Daun, but her specialty was something that would have horrified the council. "The consciousness transfer project is ahead of schedule," she said. "We now have 12,000 volunteers who have successfully merged their minds with our ship computers." The breakthrough had come 20 years ago. Human scientists had found a way to copy a person's thoughts and memories into a computer, without destroying what made them human. The volunteers could control entire fleets as if the ships were extensions of their own bodies. They thought at the speed of light and never grew tired or made mistakes. "And our weapons?" Dayun asked. Wu Jin's weathered face cracked into a smile that was not pleasant to see. "Antimatter production is at maximum. The gravity bombs are tested and ready. And the new plasma cannons, he paused, enjoying the moment. They can turn a moon into dust from 10 light minutes away. But it was Hyunwoo who delivered the most important news. He was another child of the void, his face marked with the strange tattoos that the Starborn used to show their rank. Intelligence reports from Council Space, he said, activating a hologram that showed the political situation in the galaxy they had left behind. The Dominion has been busy, Hyunwoo continued. They've conquered 15 smaller civilizations in the past decade. Feltar claims it's for their own protection, but the other council members are starting to worry. Several species are questioning his authority. Da-Yun studied the tactical analysis with the cold calculation of someone raised for war. And their military strength? Exactly what we expected, Hyunwoo replied. They've grown lazy and overconfident. Most council fleets still use the same weapons and tactics they had 50 years ago. They think they're so advanced that no one could challenge them. The irony was not lost on any of them. While humanity had been forced to innovate and adapt to survive in the void, the council had grown comfortable with their superiority. They had stopped advancing, stopped growing, stopped learning. They were exactly what they had always been, while humanity had become something entirely new. Da-Yun moved to the central command console, her movements fluid in the low gravity she had been born to. Around her, displays showed the vast network of human civilization. Millions of people who had never known the warmth of a sun, who thought of vacuum as home and built their lives among the stars. Begin Phase 3 preparations, she ordered. Send word to all stations and fleets. It's time to keep our promise. The message went out at the speed of light, traveling through the network of communication arrays that linked human space. In research stations, scientists began loading their most advanced weapons onto ships that existed more in quantum space than normal reality. In training centers, pilots who were part human and part computer ran final simulations of battles that would reshape the galaxy. The first ships to launch were scouts, small, fast vessels that could slip through hyperspace without being detected. Their job was to map council defenses and confirm that the aliens still remembered nothing about humanity, except that they were gone. Commander Insu led the first scouting mission. His ship was invisible to every sensor the council possessed, built from materials that bent light around them and moved through space like a whisper. When he reached the edge of council territory, he found exactly what the intelligence reports had predicted. The defense stations were old and poorly maintained. The patrol ships moved in predictable patterns that hadn't changed in decades. Most importantly, there were no special watches for human vessels. The council had truly forgotten that humanity existed. They're not even looking for us, Insu reported back to Da-Un. It's like we never existed at all. Da-Un smiled coldly. Perfect. Let's remind them why forgetting your enemies is a mistake. The main fleet began its final preparations. 1,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of technology that surpassed anything in council space. They were not just ships, but extensions of human will, controlled by minds that bridged the gap between flesh and quantum computation. Captain Yunji stood on the bridge of her vessel, her consciousness split between her biological body and the ship's computer systems. She could feel every bolt and circuit, every weapon and shield generator. The ship was not just her command, it was her body, grown to the size of a small moon and armed with the power to crack planets. All ships report ready, she told Da-Yun through channels that moved faster than light. 1,000 vessels invisible to their sensors until we choose otherwise. Da-Un looked out at the empty space that humanity had learned to call home. Somewhere beyond the darkness was the galaxy that had rejected them, ruled by creatures who thought themselves superior to the young race they had driven into exile. Then let's go home, Da-Un said. It's time to show them what humanity became when they forced us to grow up in the dark. The fleet moved out in perfect silence, sliding through hyperspace toward a reunion 50 years in the making. Behind them, the constellation continued its work of turning void into civilization. And ahead of them waited a council that was about to learn that some promises were kept, no matter how long they took to fulfill. The first sign that something was wrong came as a tiny blip on the edge of council space, a gravitational wave that lasted exactly 1 second before disappearing. The automated monitoring station recorded it as equipment failure and moved on to other tasks. 3 days later, Captain Sulky of the Dominion patrol ship Supremacy was conducting routine border patrol when her sensors detected something impossible. a single vessel approaching from deep space, broadcasting identification codes that were 50 years out of date. Sulki's reptilian features twisted in confusion as she studied the readings. The ship looked human in design, but something about it was wrong. Her instruments said it was one vessel, but the mass readings suggested something much larger hiding behind it. Unknown ship, Sulki broadcast on standard channels. You are entering restricted Dominion space. Identify yourself immediately. The response came in perfect galactic standard, but with an accent that belonged to the dead past. This is Ambassador Kehoe of the Terran Confederation, requesting permission to address the Galactic Council. Sulki felt ice form in her stomach. Kehoe, the human ambassador who had left 50 years ago. Impossible. Even with their primitive medicine, he should have been dead decades ago. Human vessel, you are in violation of exile protocols, Sulki replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Depart immediately or face destruction. There was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. Then Kehoe's voice returned, carrying something that made Sulki's scales crawl with fear. Captain, I suggest you contact Chancellor Veltar immediately. Tell him an old friend has come to collect on a promise. 2 hours later, Chancellor Veltar stood before the main display in the council chamber, staring at the image of the human ship hanging motionless at the system's edge. The vessel looked familiar yet wrong, too smooth, too perfect, like it had been grown rather than built. Scan results? Veltar demanded, his voice tight with worry he refused to admit. Quindes, the ancient ethereal representative, floated forward in her containment field. Her gaseous form flickered with patterns that indicated deep concern. The vessel defies analysis. Our most powerful scanners cannot penetrate beyond the outer hull. It appears to be made of matter we cannot identify, held together by forces we do not understand. Brixnall, the insectoid representative, clicked his mandibles nervously. Perhaps we should grant the audience. What harm could one ship do against our entire fleet? Veltar's laugh was forced and ugly. One primitive human vessel against the combined might of 47 star systems? Let them come. It will be amusing to see how exile has humbled them. But even as he spoke, long-range sensors throughout council space were detecting anomalies. Gravity shadows that appeared for milliseconds before vanishing. Sensor ghosts that registered impossible readings. Deep space monitoring stations began going silent one by one, their final transmissions cut off mid-sentence. On the bridge of his impossible ship, Kehoe stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His appearance was exactly the same as it had been 50 years ago. Not aged, not worn, but changed in ways that went deeper than physical appearance. Beside him, Tactical Officer Yunji existed simultaneously in flesh and in the quantum networks that controlled the fleet. All ships report ready. Ambassador, Yunji said, her voice carrying harmonics no normal human throat could produce. 1,000 vessels in total, each invisible to their sensors until we choose to reveal ourselves. Kehoe studied the tactical display showing council space spread out before them like a map of old grievances. 50 years of growth, innovation, and preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had kept its promise to return as equals. Now it was time to prove what that meant. Decloak all ships, Kehoe ordered quietly. Across 100 star systems, reality seemed to tear itself apart. Where there had been empty space, massive warships materialized like nightmares becoming real. Each vessel was larger and more advanced than anything in the council arsenal, built with technology that transcended the simple matter manipulation the aliens understood. In the council chamber, alarms began screaming as display screens filled with impossible readings. 1,000 human vessels had appeared simultaneously across their entire territory. Each ship registered weapon signatures that dwarfed their most powerful battleships. Veltar's scaled features went pale as he finally understood what was approaching. This was not a defeated species crawling back to beg forgiveness. This was humanity returning home as something the galaxy had never seen before. Impossible, whispered Brixnall, his compound eyes reflecting the red warning lights that now filled the chamber. How could they have advanced so far in just 50 years? Quindes floated silent in her container, her ancient mind trying to process what she was seeing. In all her centuries of life, she had never witnessed technology that defied analysis so completely. These ships existed partially outside normal space, their very presence bending the laws of physics around them. Open communications, Veltar ordered, his voice cracking slightly. Let's hear what the humans want. Kehoe's image appeared above the speaking platform, transmitted directly from his ship. He looked exactly as he had 50 years ago. Diplomatic, professional, and absolutely terrifying in his calm certainty. Honored council members, Kehoe began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. I have returned as promised, to meet you as equals. You were exiled, Veltar shouted, his composure finally breaking. The terms were clear. Humanity forfeited all rights to council space forever. Kehoe's smile was patient and deadly. Indeed we did, and we honored those terms completely. We left your space and took nothing that belonged to you. He gestured, and the air filled with holographic images of the human constellation. Millions of habitats orbiting artificial stars, technology that made council science look like stone knives. We found a new home in the empty dark, Kehoe continued, where we learned to build rather than simply exist, where we discovered that the universe holds possibilities you never dreamed of. His expression hardened slightly. We had 50 years to grow, to learn, to remember why we left. What do you want? Brixnell asked, his voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air like a blade over their necks. Around the chamber, representatives who had once dismissed humanity as primitive animals now waited for judgment from creatures who had transcended their understanding of what was possible. Kehoe was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of accumulated pain and hard-won wisdom. Justice would be to do unto you as you did unto us, to demand submission, technological oversight, resource quotas, to make you spend the next 1,000 years earning the privilege of our consideration. Terror rippled through the assembly. Several representatives began whispering urgently into their communication devices, no doubt ordering their home fleets to prepare for war they could not possibly win. However, Kehoe continued, and every being in the chamber held their breath. Humanity learned something during our exile that you have not, that true strength is not measured by your ability to humiliate others, but by your choice to show mercy when mercy is neither expected nor deserved. Relief flooded through some faces, while others showed confusion at this unexpected turn. We return not as conquerors, Kehoe said, but as the equals we always were. The galaxy will change, but not through force. It will change because you will finally see us clearly. The council chamber had never been so quiet. 47 different species sat in stunned silence as the holographic displays showed human warships positioned throughout their territory. Each red dot represented a vessel that could, according to their panicked military advisors, destroy any ship in the council fleet with ease. Ambassador Kehoe stood on the speaking platform, having materialized there through technology that bent space itself around his will. He looked exactly as he had 50 years ago, but something in his presence made even the most arrogant council members shift nervously in their seats. You speak of equality, Chancellor Veltar said, struggling to maintain his authority. But you arrive with weapons pointed at our worlds. Is this how humans negotiate? Kehoe's expression remained calm and patient. Our ships are not aimed at your worlds, Chancellor. They are positioned to defend against any misunderstandings that might arise during our conversation. He gestured, and new images appeared showing human vessels providing aid to disaster zones, rescuing civilians from natural catastrophes, and protecting trade routes from pirates. We have spent these 50 years not only growing stronger but growing wiser, Kehoe continued. We return not seeking revenge but seeking the respect that should have been freely given long ago. Quindes, the ancient ethereal, flickered with patterns that indicated deep thought. You claim to seek equality, yet your technology clearly surpasses ours by centuries. How can there be equality between gods and mortals? Kehoe smiled, and for the first time it carried genuine warmth. An excellent question. The answer is simple. We offer to share what we have learned, not as masters teaching servants, but as equals sharing knowledge for the betterment of all. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Brixnell's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this unexpected offer. You would give us your technology? Why? Because isolation breeds stagnation, Kehoe replied. Because competition makes everyone stronger. Because the galaxy is vast and full of wonders that no single species can explore alone. His voice grew firmer, and because we refuse to become what you were, rulers who keep others down to maintain their own power. Veltar's scales flushed dark with anger. You dare lecture us about power? We who have maintained galactic peace for millennia. Have you? Kehoe asked quietly. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Tell me, Chancellor, how many species have been absorbed by the Dominion in the past 50 years? How many smaller civilizations have been protected into extinction? How many voices have been silenced in the name of your peace? The chamber erupted in angry shouts and denials, but Kehoe's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. We know about the Keth genocide. We know about the forced relocations of the Yill colonies. We know about the resource extraction quotas that have stripped a dozen worlds bare. Those were necessary actions, Veltar roared. Maintaining order requires difficult decisions. It requires wisdom, Kehoe corrected, something the Council abandoned when it chose fear over hope. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who suddenly found it hard to look back. We offer a different path, not rule by the strong over the weak, but partnership between equals. Young He materialized beside Kehoe, her form shifting slightly as her consciousness divided between physical presence and the quantum networks, linking the human fleet. The terms are simple, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The Galactic Council will be reformed as a true democracy. Every species gets an equal voice, regardless of military strength or technological advancement. Decisions will be made by consensus, not decree. Impossible, snarled Veltar. Some species are simply not capable of making decisions that affect galactic civilization. Order requires hierarchy. Kehoe's expression hardened. Then you have learned nothing from our exile. Very well. He turned to address the chamber directly. Any species that wishes to join the new confederation is welcome. Those who prefer the old ways are free to maintain their current system, but they will do so without the protection or participation of humanity and our allies. The threat was clear without being stated. Several representatives began rapid calculations in their heads. How many worlds would choose the human offer over council rule? How long could the Dominion maintain control if half the galaxy simply walked away? Slowly, Quindess rose, or rather floated higher in her containment field. On behalf of the Ethereal Collective, she said formally, I offer apology for the wrongs committed 50 years ago. We were blinded by our own prejudices and failed to see the potential that stood before us. Her words broke the dam. One by one, other representatives began to speak. Not all, some species were too proud, too set in their ways. But enough, more than enough. The crystalline hegemony formally requested to join the new confederation. The avian republics withdrew from the Dominion altogether. 3 species that had been protected by Veltar's forces declared independence and asked for human assistance in defending their worlds. Veltar watched his empire crumble in real time, his scaled features growing darker with each defection. You think you can remake the galaxy in your image? He hissed at Kehoe. You are children playing with forces beyond your understanding. We are not remaking anything, Kehoe replied calmly. We are simply offering what we never received, a choice. He turned back to the assembly. Those who wish to join us in building something better are welcome. Those who prefer the old ways may keep them, but the age of rule by intimidation is over. Commander Daun's voice reached Kehoe through their neural link. Admiral, several Dominion fleets are moving to intercept our ships. Your orders? Kehoe considered for a moment, then replied through the same channel. Allow them to approach. Do not fire unless fired upon. If they choose violence, respond with precision. Disable, don't destroy. Today we show them what we've become. Tomorrow they may choose to become better themselves. As the council session dissolved into chaos, with some species storming out in anger while others crowded forward to discuss terms of the new confederation, Kehoe stood quietly at the center of it all. 50 years of exile had led to this moment. Not conquest, but transformation. The old galaxy was ending. The new one would be built on principles that the young human race had learned in the cold dark between the stars. That strength without wisdom was meaningless. That true power came from lifting others up rather than keeping them down. And that the greatest victory was not in defeating your enemies, but in showing them a better way to live. As Kehoe watched species that had once scorned humanity, now eagerly discussing partnership and cooperation, he allowed himself a small smile. They had kept their promise. They had returned as equals. And perhaps in time, they could help build a galaxy where no young race would ever again face the choice between slavery and exile. The age of the council was over. The age of the Confederation had begun,